Hello everyone, this is my research presentation, and today I will be talking about Topeng, the Balinese art theater. So why did I choose Topeng? I chose Topeng because I was actually exposed to it, but I did not know that it was Topeng. And so for this unit, in which we had the chance to explore an Asian theater tradition, I decided to dig deeper into this art form, which I was really interested in, to discover more about its culture, its history, and how it's performed. Now let's get into the historical and cultural context of Topeng. So Topeng itself actually means mosque in Indonesian. It originated in the 15th to 17th century in Bali, Indonesia, but there were records of mosque theater that date back to the 9th century, with manuscripts indicating to an art form that was using masks as an accentuation of the expressions of the performers. So Topeng originally came from tribes around Bali as a way to interpret the gods. The actors were basically messengers between the gods and the common people, and it was also a way to honor ancestors. So it started off as a very spiritual and religious tradition, but it has now evolved into more of an entertainment form, but it has not lost its spiritual meaning at all. So, for the history of Topeng, there are 4 stages of Topeng. We have Topeng Pejagan, which originated in the 17th century. This was the first form. Then we have Topeng Pancha in the 18th century. Topeng Prembon in very recently 1942. And Topeng Bondres in the 1980s. So starting off with Topeng Pajang, this originated in the 17th century, and it was created by the king and his prime minister at the time as a way to utilize stolen masks from an invasion and create an art form that would entertain him. So this specific Topeng requires only one actor with different characters, so the actor would change masks. He would have between 8 to 10 masks and change characters accordingly. On the right here you'll see the most important character in this performance, and it's a symbol of prosperity and good luck, and it was used to represent the spirituality and Hinduism and the Hinduist aspect of Topeng, because at that time Bali was being heavily influenced by Hinduism. This was also performed by highly reputable actors because it was performed in front of the king himself. Topeng Pancha in the 18th century instead, it was a deviation of the first form of Topeng, and this was created by the common people as a way of entertainment, so it featured more comics and more comical characters. So this Topeng actually featured more dance and a more heavy influence on movement. And there were less requirements for actors because, of course, it was created by the common people, so it did not need to be the perfect performance because it was not in front of the king or anyone with high status. Topeng Prembon, really recent in 1942 instead. It takes aspect from previous Topengs, as well as the Balinese opera, and it creates a performance with masked and unmasked characters, which is said to have been stimulated by the revolution of Indonesia and the people of Indonesia trying to find a voice and raise awareness for how they were being oppressed at the time and how this art form was not taken as serious. This was also the first Topeng to feature female roles, which broke a very large cultural barrier, which stated that previously only male actors could perform in Topeng. The last stage is Topeng Bondres. This is purely a comical show. It's only for entertainment purposes. It's not a spiritual art form. It doesn't carry any religious meaning. It still has the background of Hindu stories, which were carried over from that aspect of Indonesia, but it is purely for entertainment. And this also included female roles. As time moves on, this became became the basic aspect of topeng, and now females are actually allowed to perform topeng. So there are 5 main aspects of the theoretical context for topeng. The first one is the masks. The mask itself, because topeng means mask, there's a heavy influence on masks. These masks are carved and handmade from wood, painted with natural pigments found in Bali, Indonesia, and they each represent a specific character based on the facial expressions and the drawings on these masks. Next we have the dance itself. The dance, it's a mixture of locomotive and non-locomotive movements, and the actors alternate between dance and pure dialogue to create a performance which is set to resemble real life and the aspects of real life as much as possible. The stories itself are carried over from Hinduism, which affected Indonesia in the early 9th centuries and before. Such stories such as the Ramayana are very common to be performed in topeng. The costumes themselves are very complicated pieces of clothing with many layers. For example, there is common is white leggings, a white there's a very ornamental headpiece which is made from flowers, jewelry, and it's painted with different pigments. And an actor would usually create his own mask and it would have a very spiritual connection with his own costume. The music itself, the music is performed by the gamelan, which is a percussion instrument. There would usually be an orchestra of these instruments, usually between 8 to 10 single instruments that would perform on a stage. And usually the music is not the music that leads, but it's the movements of the actor that lead the music. So as the actor changes pace, the gamelan players change the pace of the music accordingly. So, as I said before, there is a very heavy influence of masks, and it's a very important aspect of topeng. There are 4 main masks in topeng, and these are called the introductory masks. So first we have topeng tua, which is the old character. It's an old man. It represents a wise character with much knowledge. Next is topeng kras, which is an authoritarian character. This mask would be well made. It's very detailed with high detail, which represents the authority of the character and the importance of it in the story. Then is the pinasar, which is the narrator. This is only a half mask, as it allows the narrator to narrate the story accordingly to the original script. And then it's topeng manis, which is the hero of the story. This would be the most decorated mask on the stage. It would feature a large headpiece with many flowers and jewelry. So now I'll be performing my moment of theater. I will be performing topeng tua, which is an old character. It's the wise old man who is reminiscing his old times when he was young. Okay. We'll just skip a bit forward. introduction part. So, through the research, the development of the workshop, the development of this presentation itself, I have surely gained a lot of knowledge about toping itself, which was my goal at the start of this project. I wanted to inquire and gain knowledge on this specific art form, which I believe I did at the end of this project. I also, through the workshop of other classmates, I've gained more knowledge on theater traditions in Asia in general, which is something that I was not exposed to before, and which I've now gained a lot of knowledge about. I've also, through my workshop and through the workshop of others, I've also, in performance itself, I've gained more control of my movements, and I've learned to use movement and hand gestures to replace dialogue and facial expressions. Since in toping there's a mask, so we do not see the facial expressions of the performers, I was able to use movement and gestures and create more meaningful movements through those aspects of performance. So the connections that I've made to other Asian theater traditions are mainly towards kolam and kon. So firstly, it's because they are all heavily influenced by Hinduism and Buddhism, which were also influenced in topeng. This means that all these three performances have similar stories with a similar spiritual meaning and beliefs behind them. And in the performance itself, all of these performances, especially kon, has very controlled movements, sometimes very rigid movements that are very slow but still quite meaningful because of the lack of facial expressions, which is another connection. Is all three of these performances are masked theater traditions, which puts the focus on hand gestures and movements. Some differences between these are also that they use different stages, so the way that the performance is carried out is much different. The music is different, and the way that the instruments are played according to the actor's movements are different between these three performances. We're excited. Thank you very much.